All right, hello, viewers. Welcome back to another episode another video on the Protestant education. Today's video is about the Wesleyan Quadrilateral and why do we use it. The Wesleyan Quadrilateral is a distinctly Methodist thing. I'm sure there's other traditions that have similar frameworks of thinking about their theologies, but it is a Methodist distinctive, at least in my opinion. That's not really a hard opinion. It's not important if it is or isn't a Methodist distinctive, but it is something key in Methodism and how we think about things as Methodists. So let's start with the name Methodism, or Methodist. The name Methodist comes from the methodical approach that the Wesleys and their followers had to Christianity. And I think that the Wesleyan Quadrilateral is that on paper. It is explaining that methodical approach of thinking about theology. Now, the framework is credited to John Wesley. However, the term Wesleyan Quadrilateral wasn't coined until the 20th century. Sorry, I keep looking around my script a little too much. It consists of 4 lenses with which to look at doctrine and teaching and to test them. It developed out of the Anglican tradition, which held very similar things, although Wesley added one more part to it. So in the Anglican tradition, they test teachings with scripture, tradition, and reason. Wesley added in the last part, which is experience, and he thought that it held much value into theological reasoning. It's why he formed the Methodist movement. So the first part of the Wesleyan Quadrilateral is scripture. I know quadrilateral somewhat implies an equal among 4 parts. That's not really the case here. We start with scripture, and scripture is the thing that everything else is measured by. So if you find something in reason that disagrees with scripture, throw it out. If you find something in tradition that disagrees with scripture, throw it out. If there's something in your own personal experience that disagrees with scripture, throw it out. Scripture is the starting point. And with scripture, we test everything else. I'm not going to go too in-depth on that one, since I feel like most Christians kind of agree with that. Even Catholic and Orthodox churches agree with scripture being at or close to the top in the Catholic Church, at least. Actually, no, I think they still hold. We'll just cut that little bit out. Tradition is second on our list. There have been so many amazing theologians all throughout history. Now, reading the church fathers or the theologians in your tradition, it's not going to give you some mystical understanding of the Bible, but it does help to show the development of doctrine, which is an important idea in classical Protestantism. It's what sets us apart from Catholic and Orthodox churches. We don't hold to any really super infallible teaching outside of the scripture. So this emphasis on tradition in a sola scriptura or prima scriptura format, again, it shows us the development of doctrine, and that is classical Protestantism. That is very, very important. We had two great theologians, right? We were just talking about Wesley. Wesley took from Arminius. Calvin and Arminius both read Romans. They had very different takeaways, so tradition isn't always infallible. Actually, it's never infallible. It's important to understand that these early theologians and these early councils provide a lot of context to our own reading of the scriptures. The saint who wrote on the Incarnation, the name is slipping me right now. I want to say Athanasius, but I can't remember if it's him or Irenaeus. But on the Incarnation was a foundational piece of writing in early Christianity. I would argue it's probably one of the most important writings in Christianity, even more so than even St. Augustine, I would say. But anyways, on to the third thing. Reason is the third. And the way I see reason is it follows science and logic. It's putting together the world with the Christian worldview. It's why I personally, and many others, believe in evolution while still being a Christian. It's why we don't automatically reject science, because if science is the understanding of our outside world, and this is the world that God created, me personally, I want to understand it. I want to understand the beauty of this world that God created and, just how it works. I mean, it's amazing. It's one of the greatest creations on the planet, just the planet. Like, it's beautiful. Look outside. Look out your window for 2 seconds. Maybe that is, just a personal thought, but that last little bit was a bit of a personal diatribe. But it is, it's science and logic. When you talk about moral objections to Christianity, that's what you're engaging in. You're engaging with reason when you're doing that apologetically. When you're saying, like, no, well, the moral question, the problem of evil is solved because da-da-da-da-da, whatever reason whatever argument you use to fix the problem of evil from an apologetic standpoint. But the last one is experience. Experience was very important to John Wesley. It's why he started the Methodist movement in the first place, like I said before. And he wasn't the only one to think that experience is important. If you go back, I have a video on 5 proto-Methodist figures, little shameless plug here. And you'll notice an emphasis on figures who place a great deal on personal experience and personal relationship with God. I think, honestly, on that list, with the exception of Arminius, maybe. But experience is how God talks to you individually, and it's how he has worked in your life. The things that he has done for you specifically. The beautiful way that he weaves you into this grand story that he's trying to tell throughout the entire world history, and the way that it'll somehow come back to his glory. And I think that's great. Another thing about experience is it is sometimes the greatest apologetics argument you need. You don't need no science, no Bible, just how God has fundamentally transformed your life, I think, can be a lot more beautiful to certain people, a certain audience, than, well, if we look at how the world was created and, all of the precise factors that need to be in place for da-da-da-da-da, like, I'm not saying that's a bad argument. I'm saying it's not the best argument for everyone. Earlier today I was watching Trent Horn on someone else's show. I cannot remember for the life of me who it was now, but and the other guy he was talking to said he likes to take a toolbox approach to apologetics, where depending on the person you're talking to, you pick a tool, in the same way you don't just hear about a problem with something that you were doing a carpentry project on and you just decide, oh, well, why don't I take the saw to it? Well, what if it's not a saw-related problem? What if it's a hammer-related problem? Well, now you've got a problem because you broke out the saw when you need a hammer. You see what I'm saying? I know that's a little bit off the Wesleyan Quadrilateral, but we're coming back here. So why do we use the Wesleyan Quadrilateral? We use it because it's a very easy framework to understand. And I really like it because it encourages a well-rounded understanding of the faith. From the Bible to the theologians who have meditated and studied on the Bible, probably way more than anybody else alive today. Over to reason, which, as I said before, I think it includes logic, science, philosophy. If theology is the science of sciences, then the reason part explains why we should study these sciences in addition to theology. And then there's experience, which I think I've already done a pretty good job explaining why experience is so great. But, I mean, personal testimony is powerful, and it's also important to understanding theology because it is a relationship. I hate when people say, oh, it's not a religion, it's a relationship, because it's both, It's both a religion and a relationship, and, those things are important. But anyways, that's it for this video. I know this one's a little shorter. I kind of tried to stick away from the rambliness in this video. I know we moved into it every here and there, but, I'm not upset with how long-winded we got in some points. I think this was a fairly concise video. But with that said, any feedback, please let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear it. And I will see you guys in the next video on the Protestant Education channel. God bless you and your families. Have a great rest of your day.